This is why I got into reviewing cars, driving the unobtainable, the supercars, the hypercars. And that's what I'm doing today. However, there is one very major problem with this car. My name is Elliot Richards and this is the AION HYPER SSR. Now, AION claim this is China's first supercar, but everyone in the know knows that's already been claimed by the Geely Beauty Leopard. Now, this is a supercar that's been built by GAC, their AION wing of the company, which is their kind of hyper-fast performance cars. They've done a performance sedan, which we've tested on the Fully Charged show. So, if you're in the market for a new supercar, you've got $175,000 US, you live in China, and you don't want a Porsche GT3, then you can go for this brand, which is a relatively unknown brand out of China. And that, right here, is one of its biggest problems. Yes, this badge. Now, we know this brand in China, GAC. They've been around for over 60 years. They're a state-owned company. They've been producing cars for a while, especially electric cars, and they're quite popular here in China for their kind of humdrum sedans. But to bring out a supercar and actually bring it onto market and actually package it really well, that's surprising. I think if this car had a different badge, like an Alpine, and this was sold in Europe, it would do very well. But here, the package itself is very good, but I think the brand is the one thing which might let it down. But let's talk about some of the exterior features of the car, because this is a very, very special package. So, first of all, carbon fibre, everything is carbon fibre. It's very difficult to find any parts which are not carbon fibre. It's got active aero down here, and this really helps it grip to the floor when you're doing ridiculous speeds, which you can do in this car. Up here, there's two lights. You see these? Now, this indicates your charging status. So when you plug this in the charge, these will go up and show you how much charge you've still got left remaining. So I think that's a pretty cool feature. Now, this is from a Guangzhou company. Guangzhou companies like to put lots of lights on things, and that's one such case right here. I think it looks very striking over here. Now, it's a little bit like a mini NSX or a Ferrari 458. There's lots of influences you can see in the side of this car. But this car was actually designed by a guy called Pontus. Pontus is a European, and he previously worked at Ferrari designing the F12. So they've got the design chops on this car. If we come back here, again, there's lots of scoopy bits, again, to help with the downforce, very low down. And of course, gull wing doors. Who doesn't like gull wing doors? Both sides. Carbon fibre, carbon fibre, carbon fibre, all carbon fibre. Moving to the back here, there's no scoops, there's no engine to cool down. And the batteries are kind of down here in the middle to keep them as low as possible and further back. So it's kind of got a feeling like a rear-wheel drive car a little bit, with a weight distribution towards the back. Now, where the front is very visually striking, I think the back loses it a little bit. It's less visually as interesting. It is quite a wide car. You see this driving down the street, it's pretty wide. But it does hide a few things in here. So there's no engine, but there are batteries and electric motors. If you press the badge and you have your storage space, it's only about that big. A couple of day bags, one small suitcase, that is about it. All of the tech gubbins are in there. Again, all carbon fibre. Does this carbon fibre help with the weight? It must do, right? So the car weighs about 2 tons, about 2,000 kilograms. So it's gonna have to have all this carbon fibre to try and keep that weight down a bit. Maybe you might be wondering how you can charge this. Charging port is here. You press there, or press here, or you press here, and it will open up. You've got AC and DC fast charging here. Now, when you touch some of these things within the car, inside the car, you start to feel there's a bit of GAC's, how do I put this? Not quality control, but the finance team have got involved. And some of these, that feels a little bit nasty. On a car which costs $175,000, some of these plastics, some of the just feeling doesn't feel great. And you just see that in a few places across the car, but overall, it's very, very good. Oh, one more thing. look at this, probably proper aero all the way down here. That goes really very far in on both sides. Again, carbon fibre, as you can hear, it sounds like carbon fibre, but that goes all the way in. That, again, that helps with the downforce when you're doing those ridiculous speeds, and here on both sides. Now, before we get into the driving of this car, which is what I really want to do, I actually haven't driven it, I've just moved it around this car park. Let's consider some of the tech inside. So the car has a lithium ternary ion battery. It's about 75 kilowatt hours, and that gives 506 kilometers of CLTC range. So take that with a massive pinch of salt. And especially when you're driving something like this, you're not going to be driving it that slowly. It has 3 electric motors giving 900 volts of power and over 1,200 Newton meters of torque, like blows your face off. This thing does 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds. So we're getting close to Lotus Evija territory or Rimac Nevera territory, but those cars cost $2 million, $3 million. This cost $175,000. So then all of a sudden you think, okay, I don't know the badge, but at that price point, you can buy 20 of these for one of those. That makes you wonder. This can compete with those European supercars, I think. But we'll drive and find out. Now the SSR, that stands for Super, Sports and Race. None of which I'm going to be doing today on the streets of Shanghai, but I want to feel what this is actually like to drive as a first EV supercar from a brand, first EV supercar really out on the market, if you exclude the Chen 2, and this actually came out before the Yangwang. And this is from GAC, who have no experience making supercars. Yes, they make lots and lots of EVs, but not a supercar. Now, initially, on my first thoughts in driving this car is I'm surprised. I'm surprised at how good it is, straight out of the bag. Now, I was expecting this to be either flimsy or massively compromised in how the ride feels, but absolutely not. This feels like it's Italian Big Brothers, the ICE variants, but it's an EV. I mean, this is so poised and pointed. You really have a great deal of feedback from the steering wheel and the chassis. This feels like a, I'm not going to say Lotus Elise, but it does feel a bit like a Lotus Elise. I'm getting so much back from the road, and for me, there you go, that's such a win in my book. Now for me, with that exterior packaging, the motors, the battery, everything just so far seems really good. But then you come onto the interior, and this for me is the biggest compromise. They've tried to go for luxe, and I get it, you're spending 175,000 US dollars. You want some luxury feature. You don't want this to be a basic Lotus Elise, but I think they've compromised too much. There's parts of this interior which feel to me like one of their $20,000 sedans. For example, the heating controls here, or the ventilation controls, this is metal on the front, great, feels really nice, but the actual movement itself, that feels like it's from a cheap $20,000 GAC car. That's not very nice. Steering wheel for me is the biggest mistake. They've kind of gone for this sporty racing steering wheel in this shape. Fine, I'm not the biggest fan, but they've got rid of the indicators, like Tesla. They've also got rid of the stalk for all of the controls for your windscreen washers and your lights. You know, if you're driving at the ragged edge, if you're driving really quickly, you don't want to look down and try and find where these buttons are. You want a just quick control on the side. So for me, that's just innovation for the sake of copying Tesla, which I don't like. I do have 2 screens. I've got a 14-inch screen here and an 8-inch screen over here. Again, there's bits of carbon fibre dotted around the interior. But the most impressive thing is it's all very well made. So this is like solid metal and feels like it's connected to directly to the chassis. And in here, I've got my direct drive controls. Not really anywhere to put my phone. My phone has to go through here and down at the bottom. I do have space for my drinks bottle, which is always good. So in practicality terms, I've got space there, and it actually fits, unlike the Denza Z9 GT. But there's also another very weird space. There's an opening here, and I can put my bottle in there like that. It seems a bit odd. So unless you have a sealed bottle like mine, all your drink's going to go flying everywhere. And I don't know what happens if you break something. Does that shoot off and go flying through the windscreen? This is a little bit odd. Just give me a normal compartment. I can put my phone in there, I guess. This is just odd. So I think for me, the interior is a bit of a miss. It does feel very nice. It feels very premium in most parts. But it's let down by just an overall clarity in thinking in terms of the design. One more thing I do want to talk about is visibility. Now, we are very low down as squat, but luckily I've got a camera on the front, camera up here, and camera on the wing mirrors, which gives me full 360-degree vision, which is great. So this is the main screen here, and as you can see, it's okay. I think this is a bit of a letdown, and to be honest, it seems a bit unnecessary. There's not really much functionality you need from this screen. It doesn't have things like self-driving, for example. So what do we have? Well, in the car menu, I've got my sports mode, my race modes, sport, comfort, professional, and I can also adjust it on the steering wheel. Over here, I've got a few more buttons about where my cameras are, adjusting the wing mirrors, you know, basic functionality of a car, opening that silly compartment. So again, do I really need a screen for this, or could these have all been simple buttons down here in lovely metallic, and then therefore reducing the size of the screen? I've got my basic apps in here. This is quite simple, really. It's nothing at all to shout home about. And that's basically it. So you have a screen, but it doesn't have a great deal of functionality. And for me, if you're going to make a Hyper SSR sports car, make this smaller, make it very functional about maps and maybe a couple of small features. Straight off the bat though, I'm going to talk about some annoyances, one of which is the indicators. Now they've put them on the steering wheel like Tesla, but there's not really any feedback. Now there's got these little dots on above the indicator arrows, but when you push it down, you barely notice it. And then the sound of the indicator is very faint. So you almost can't hear it. There you go. It just turned itself off. I'm getting direct feedback from the steering wheel of how the road feels, how the handling feels, how the suspension feels, how the chassis feels. And that's such a good feeling. It's really very unusual for a sports car like this. Now there's no getting away from the fact that this is still heavy for a supercar. It's about 2,000 kilograms. So yes, you do feel that weight, but the weight is pretty well balanced for a car. All the weight is behind me and below me, which means I can kind of chuck this around corners and it doesn't really affect the handling too much. Whereas I think in a really heavy SUV or something, you'd be feeling that weight obviously a lot more. It's a lot more high-sided. But the way this thing handles is insane. Now, there's another couple of really good points about this car that I have to mention. So first is the carbon ceramic brakes, which are, I'm not going to lie, very good at stopping. They are like pin sharp, as you would expect from carbon ceramic brakes, and you need that for all that heft sitting behind me in the batteries. But, oh wow, I'm really very, very pleasantly surprised. I was not expecting a car to be this competent at being a supercar or a hypercar, or even handling that well. But this does. This is from a car company that has never made even a sports car, let alone a hypercar or supercar, whatever you want to call this. But I still can't get over the fact, who would pay $175,000 US for this? You'd have to be nuts, right? You've won me over, GAC. I shouldn't be liking a 1,230 horsepower electric supercar, but oh my God, I do. I really do. That horsepower number is okay for a supercar. It's okay. You can take this to a track. It's got carbon ceramic brakes. It's all good. Apart from those indicators, but you don't need those on the track. Right, now we're going to try it and put it in a different mode. What's that? Race mode. Now, obviously, we're in Shanghai. Maximum speed about 40 kilometers an hour, but we'll try a little blast and see how it goes. It's got traction control. I'm not going to turn the ESP off. I'm going to leave the ESP on whilst we do this. But I've got my G-force up there. I don't think we're going to be doing much G-force change once we accelerate. We've also got, let's just close this. We've also got comfort, professional, which I think is only for track use, and sport. I don't know what the difference between sport and race is. It's a nice little tune, isn't it? Right, now we're in a bit of private land. I can actually test how this feels in the corners going a bit fast. Yeah, it's really very competent. Like, it's properly gripping around the corners. There's no creaks or rattles. Brakes are superb. I'm not going to go too fast. There are people around, but yeah, I mean, this is a great feeling supercar. It's absolutely got all the right ingredients. I am absolutely loving this so much. This car does what a supercar is meant to do. Make you feel special. It absolutely ticks every box in that respect. It might not be the perfect all-round package. It might not be the perfect driving supercar in the world. It might not have everything that you need. It might be compromised, but oh my God, does this make me feel exceptionally special. And for that, this definitely joins the ranks of the other supercars in the world.